Okay, today we are going to be making polenta with greens. This can be both a breakfast, a lunch, and or a dinner. It's a very versatile dish. We've got some rainbow chard here, very beautiful colors, delicious earthy greens. We have our polenta here. We're going to be using some goat cheese to add at the end to both flavor and richen up the polenta. We're definitely going to throw a little bit of butter in here. And we've got some chicken stock and some half and half to add to the overall creaminess. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make sure we got everything together. I'm going to be using this as a measuring device today, and I've got my pot back here that we're going to be putting everything in. So the first thing we want to do is measure out the polenta so we can see how much of that we need. So the general ratios here are going to be 1 cup of dry, so 1 cup of polenta, to 4 cups of liquid. So you can measure that out or scale it out to roughly about 225 grams, what I'm wanting to be per sneak. I want about the 4 cups because we're making double. And so that's going to be this whole container, which is nice because we know by looking at the front that it's about 4 cups or 32 fluid ounces. So we can go ahead and take that and dump that into our pot, turn our heat on, and we're gonna bring this up relatively quickly. So we'll start it at high heat, and then we're gonna take our half and half here. We're gonna go for our 4 cups. So there's our 8 cups because we're doing 2 cups of the dry. Pour that in. Now that we've got that in, we just need to bring that to a boil, and we can process the rest of the ingredients. Okay, so to process the rest of these ingredients, all we're gonna do is just measure out the amount of butter here, and we're only gonna use about maybe a quarter. So this is gonna be about 2 to 3 ounces of butter. And then at the end, when we finish, we're gonna put in about 5 ounces of goat cheese to finish it off. So we'll just go ahead and open that. For the greens here, we're just gonna go ahead and cut the leaves, the actual greens, off of the stems here. And we're gonna process the stems separately. We're gonna do something a little bit. And so by that I mean we're just gonna follow along the rib line and just cut off the greens. And then we'll set those to chop up, and then the same thing with the stems. So we'll go ahead and take all these leaves and we'll kind of roll them up into a little bit of a log here. And we're gonna cut about inch wide sections out of these leaves so that as they wilt, we get some nice bite-sized pieces. Okay, so processing these here. So these are nice, they're pretty, right? We got some nice colors here, and they're obviously a very different texture than the greens themselves. And so I like to process these a little bit separately. We'll take these and we'll actually throw a little bit of shallot in here, dice it up, and we can saute all that together with a little bit of vinegar, and then we can put that on top with the greens as kind of a separate component. Cut these guys up, these bigger pieces, we'll just cut into some smaller pieces, maybe cutting off these older dry ends. So on this big one, we'll split down the middle. All right, so we're just gonna line that up. Is that claw technique just against the fingers there, and we're just gonna give ourselves a little small to medium dice of these. Now we're gonna lose some of the size as we saute them up. So we wanna keep them big enough so that we're, not just gonna have these tiny, tiny little pieces. And see, we got this nice menagerie of colors here, which is gonna, just lend to the visual enjoyment of the dish. Okay, so way back there, we're gonna go ahead and get this shallot set up here. So we've taken the outer skin off here, and I'm gonna show you how to actually slice these up. So you're gonna just find a little bit of a slice, maybe about 3/4 of the way through. So just pushing down in, so we're getting some smaller slices within the shallot, right? And so we're just gonna do this all the way through, and we're gonna come back to that middle cut, and we're just gonna cut it in half, that way we can lay it down on its side. So now we have a part that's open and a part that's not, so it's a little bit connected at the back here. And so now we're just gonna hold that and use the tip of the knife to come through little shallots. So now we kind of have like a blue and onion situation here. And so we're just gonna use the same feature right there, and we're just gonna push that knife through just to get some nice small dice here on the shallot. We come all the way back to that back piece for the most part, and we'll flip it over. And we're just gonna try to make that dice up as best as we can. So then we end up with something a little bit like this. Right. Cooks, we want to make sure that we're checking and stirring every couple of minutes. We don't want anything to burn. As it starts to really thicken, we really run into the risk of it burning at the bottom. And then having a burn is no bueno, because that burned smoky flavor just carries in through that fat and it ruins it. Definitely many times you were working on maybe, 5 or 6 things at once, and you had the polenta going and you just lost track of it at one point, and you turn around and you go to stir it and you feel the spoon just kind of bite into something a little firm at the bottom of the pot. If that ever happens, don't dig and don't try to scrape the bottom, but actually try to transfer it to another pot immediately without scraping anything to try to salvage the polenta. Because if you scrape that burny stuff up in there, you're never gonna get it out. So our polenta here is starting to pick up some nice thickness. And so we're just gonna keep it moving around. And so while we're working on that, let's go ahead and come over here and we'll get this heat up on high. We're gonna 1, 2, 3 rounds of olive oil there. So about 3 tablespoons or so. Stirring that polenta always and forever. We're just gonna let this oil get nice and hot for a second. We're gonna throw in the shallot here, and then we're gonna throw in our stalks here, and we'll saute those down for just a little bit. Seasoning, and then we'll pull them out and set them into the side. Cool a little bit of touch of vinegar, and then serve them for later. All right. Take too much to sizzle down. Just looking at getting them to release some of that nice sweet oniony flavor into the oil here and soften up just a little bit. And we're just gonna drop that in. While I'm thinking about it, we're just gonna trade spots here. All right, want this to bubble, which means it's kicking hot polenta all over the place. Once again, for these stems here, we don't want to cook them down too much. We're just looking to break them down and soften them out. So we'll give them a touch of salt. And that polenta is starting to look pretty good here. So it's been about a 10-minute cook or so on this to get it reduced down. And that's pretty good there for the stalks. Now these guys have a really nice earthy flavor. Just let them cool down just a little bit. And so now we're just gonna do about a tablespoon apple cider vinegar in there. Put in another 1.5 tablespoons or so of olive oil in here. Get this pan lit back up. We'll go ahead and add in these greens. Just get all little bits. Add the salt. And a few grates, some green peppercorns. Black works just fine as well. I just have green in here, and I like the floral flavor that it gives. So for the greens here, all looking for is to wilt these down. You don't want to overcook them. Just looking for the structure to break down, the moisture to release. That's why we want to do this at a relatively high heat, because we're actually trying to get that water that's in the greens to evaporate out nice and quickly. And perfect. Okay, so we're gonna keep moving these around. I'm gonna continue to cook, and our thickness is pretty much where we want it to be. So we're gonna go ahead and kill the heat here. We're gonna come over to our fats, and we're gonna go ahead and add these in. Put it in there, break it up, just get it stirred in. Bring that whisk back in just to break up goat cheese clumps that are in there. There we go. Let's go ahead and give it another taste. Slight tangy, nice notes of the sweet corn flavor, a lot of nice cream notes. All in all, a very delicious creamy polenta. And then, try with a little bit of the grains. That's gonna be really good. You could crack a couple of eggs, over medium, over easy, sunny, so you prefer. My preference is to have a little bit of a runny yolk in there, so it all out over everything. You get that extra level of specialness that you get from the yolk. But if you don't like them, I get it. Any type of egg is good with this dish.